will present firstly about virus, how the virus attack humans' immune system, how the virus affect humans' health, how vaccination works, and lastly, conclusion. I think everyone are familiar with the word virus from the last 2 years. A virus is an infectious agent of small size and simple composition that can multiply only in living cells of animals, plants, or bacteria. A virus has 2 or 3 components. Starting from the inside, you will have nucleic acid, which can be either RNA or DNA, and in both cases, the nucleic acid can be either single or double-stranded. Then, surrounding the nucleic acid will be a protein coat that called capsid. That is what all viruses have. Now, some viruses will also have an envelope which they obtain as they emerge from the cell. The viruses vary in diameter from 20 to 400 nanometer. The largest viruses measure about 500 nanometer in diameter and are about 700 to 1000 nanometer in length. Therefore, the viruses are smaller than bacteria and cannot be seen under the microscope. Viruses can come in many shapes such as helical, icosahedral, and complex. Helical viruses are long and cylindrical such as tobacco mosaic viruses. Icosahedral viruses are made up by equilateral triangles that fuse together in a spherical shape that fully enclose the genetic material, like poliovirus. Complex viruses are the combination between icosahedral shaped head and a helical shaped tail, such as bacteriophages. Viruses cannot replicate alone, so they must have a living cell in order to survive and replicate. Recently, the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a dramatic loss of human life worldwide and presents an unprecedented challenges to public health, food system, and the world of work. Economic and social disruption caused by the pandemic is devastating, which turns millions of people are at risk of falling into extreme poverty, while the number of undernourished people, currently estimated at 960 million, could increase by up to 132 million by the end of the year. Hence, this virus needs to be stopped. Did you know that our body has a powerful army that could protect us from various types of threat? This is called immune system. Immune system is a complex network of organs including white blood cell and organs and tissues of the lymph system. This system works together to protect us from foreign invaders or germs such as bacteria, viruses, fungi, and toxins. Our body has a total of 3 lines of defense. Viruses cannot be killed by antibody since viruses don't have the same component as bacteria. Hence, only antiviral medication or vaccine can eliminate or reduce the severity of viral diseases such as COVID-19. Vaccine or immunization is active immunity and a process to becoming immune or protected against diseases. It uses our body natural defenses to build resistance to specific infections and make our immune system stronger. Vaccines train our immune system to create antibodies just as it does when exposed to a disease.
Next, how does COVID-19 attack the human immune system? So firstly, we have to know what is immune system. Like Adriana mentioned before, immune system is a complex network of organs including white blood cells and organs and tissues of the lymphatic system. So the function of immune system is to protect us against diseases and harmful substances, and it also maintain health and pathogenesis. The key player in immune system is the white blood cells, which is such as T cells, B cells, and dendritic cells. So white blood cells can travel throughout the body through blood vessels. In lymphatic system, body exchanges cells and fluids between blood and lymphatic vessel to monitor for invading microbes. So lymphatic vessels, they carry lymph, and each lymph node contains specialized compartments where they can encounter antigens. So the immune cells can confront antigens in lymph nodes and the spleen's compartment. COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 has almost the same mechanism as SARS-CoV and MERS. So the stages of infection for it is almost the same, where it has 3 stages. The first stage of infection is known as the viral replication, where the virus started replicates itself in our body as it finds a suitable receptor. The second stage is known as the hyperreactivity of immune system. So as the immune system triggers, cytokine is released. An over-release of cytokine, or also known as cytokine storm, may lead to pulmonary destruction, which is the third stage of infection where most patients diagnosed with COVID-19 will have a lung failure and some needs to be ventilated. So how does the virus COVID-19 attack the human immune system? So firstly, when the body is affected by COVID-19 virus, skin and inflammatory responses begin. So COVID-19 virus, it has a spike protein, or also known as S protein, present on its surface. So there are 2 domains of S, which is S1 and S2. angiotensin converting enzyme 2, ACE2, on the human host cell surface interacts with receptor binding domain RBD in S1 of the virus, while S2 domain is responsible for virus cell membrane fusion and viral entry with higher affinity. So after finding the suitable receptor, translation process begins when the viral RNA genome is transferred from the envelope into the cytoplasm. Meanwhile, a toll-like receptor, TLR7, sends the binding of RBD and ACE2 and secretes inflammatory cytokines. So cytokines, they may be overproduced and affect the lungs. So the epithelial cells of infected lungs produce interleukin IL-8, which acts as a chemoattractant for neutrophils and T lymphocytes. So next, the innate immune response, which is the first line of defense, is then triggered by the infected lung epithelial cells, where neutrophils rapidly kill viruses by an oxidative burst, defensing secretion and neutrophil extracellular traps. Lastly, the presence of antigen then stimulates the adaptive immunity, which is the third line of defense. So in this stage, B cells, assisted by T cells, started to differentiate into plasma cells to produce antibodies specific to a viral infection. So helper T cells and cytotoxic T cells also play a major role in cleaning the viral infected cells.
Now, let's see how can such virus affect humans' health. The COVID-19 virus is fitted with protein spikes sticking out of the envelope that form the surface and houses a core of genetic material. It is likely that COVID-19 uses the same receptor as SARS, as it found both in lung and small intestine. Organs that most affected by COVID-19 virus are obviously the lung. COVID-19 virus can be categorized into two parts. The first one are the common effect, and the second one are the long-term effect, or also called as post-COVID. Older people and people with many serious medical conditions are the most likely to experience lingering COVID-19 effect. But even young, otherwise healthy people can feel unwell for weeks to months after infection. Common signs are cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, joint and chest pain, depression, loss of smell and taste, muscle pain, and even sleep problems. Most people who have infected are recovered completely, but some of them still continue to experience the effect after their initial recovery. We can describe them as long haulers or post-COVID-19. The long-term effect can be pneumonia, acute respiratory syndrome, organ damage, septic shock, and even worse are death. Now let's see the video below. The virus can damage the small blood vessel lining the lungs and initial clotting. The alveoli are tiny air sacs where oxygen goes into the blood. If they get inflamed, it can trigger pneumonia. Study found it's mainly verbal memorized of the ability to remember the words, as well as concentration and planning abilities that seems to be affected. These are the differences between the normal lung and COVID-19 patient lung that we can see by the X-ray.
Getting a vaccination is one of the ways to overcome this COVID-19 outbreak. So now we're going to discuss on how does the vaccine works. After being exposed to an infection, our immune system will remember the threat. That is why we usually won't get affected by the same bug twice. This is exactly how vaccine works. Vaccine will mimic this process, which our immune system will create an antibody for these viruses, for this COVID virus, without having us actually go through the illness. Basically, in the vaccine that we got, it contains a faint version of the virus. The virus is too weak to cause any infection to us, but just strong enough to stimulate an immune response. Within a few weeks after the vaccination, our body will produce its own antibody that is specific for this virus, for this COVID virus. Then, our immune system in our body will respond to these antibody signals to destroy and consume all of these viruses. Later on, if it's happened that you caught the real viruses, our body will able to recognize and destroy it itself. Even though vaccination is very crucial at the moment, but once a potential vaccine is discovered, it needs to go through a few of checkpoints before it could be distributed. First comes on the checkpoint is preclinical tests, which involve experiment in laboratory and in animals. The vaccine should not only be effective, but it also needs to be safe to be used for everyone. Next, clinical trials. Clinical trials involve small group of people which can be increased over time that are given the shot of the vaccination with close monitored from the scientists and the doctors. After the trials, experiment and tests, the vaccine should have an approval, for example, from FDA. The vaccine that has an approval have the certificate which shown that it is safe to be distributed and used for everyone. And lastly, after all of these checkpoints are closely monitored, this vaccination could be spread widely, could be used widely, so that in hope it could curb this COVID-19 pandemic.
In conclusion, COVID-19 are dangerous and may bring to death. We can relate this topic with Bio 270 in chapter Immune System. Extra precaution steps must include in daily life to avoid being exposed to coronavirus. Make sure we always maintain the social distancing. Wear a mask properly which cover your mouth and nose area, and don't forget to get your vaccination. Yes, COVID-19 outbreak is on the loose and becomes a global pandemic. In our opinion, we can together overcome this situation by following the health procedure. Respiratory viruses are typically transmitted via droplets in sneeze or coughs of those infected, so preventing their travel stops the spread of the disease. These are the list of references that we refer to. That's all from us. Until the next time, thank you and stay safe everyone. Bye!